Prologue. The abduction in the heart of the dense Dandakaranya forest, where ancient trees whispered forgotten tales, Sita stood firm, her calm defiance a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around her. Before her loomed Raavan's Pushpak Viman, a magnificent flying craft shimmering with golden carvings, signaling not just power, but an imminent threat. As Raavan, the fearsome king of Lanka, descended with regal menace, Sita's unyielding gaze met his, showing no trace of fear, only the dignity of a warrior queen who knew that strength wasn't always in weapons. The noble vulture Jatayu soared into battle, his mighty wings cutting through the air in a desperate attempt to save Sita. But even his valor couldn't match Raavan's might. As Jatayu fell wounded and Raavan seized his prize, Sita's composure never wavered. For even in captivity, she knew her spirit remained unconquered. A spark that would ignite legends to come. Chapter 1. The foundling long before kingdoms would speak her name in reverence. Destiny placed Sita gently into the world, not born of a womb, but discovered in a furrow carved into Mithila's sacred soil. As King Janak walked through his parched fields, seeking solace from the gods during a time of drought, he stumbled upon the glowing infant, her presence a silent answer to prayers he hadn't voiced aloud. Queen Sunaina, upon seeing the child, recognized instantly that this was no ordinary girl, but a gift from the divine, one who would belong not just to them, but to an entire kingdom. Naming her Sita, after the very furrow from which she emerged, the royal couple embraced their newfound daughter, unaware that this simple act of love would one day alter the fate of empires. As the sun rose over Mithila that day, it didn't just mark the dawn of a new morning, but the beginning of a legend taking her first breath. Chapter 2. The education begins. As Sita grew within the palace walls, it became clear that the divine child was not destined for a life of mere royal comfort, for her curiosity stretched far beyond silken chambers and courtly games. Recognizing this spark, Queen Sunaina ensured that Sita's education was not confined to the arts of grace, but expanded to include the disciplines of warfare, governance, and philosophy. Under the stern guidance of Rishi Shvetaketu, Sita's days were filled with lessons that tested both mind and body, where ancient scrolls weighed as much as swords in shaping her future. It was during these formative years that Sita's bond with her younger sister Urmila blossomed. Where Urmila embodied gentleness, Sita stood as the protector, sharpening her resolve with every passing day. With each sparring session won and every debate mastered, Sita wasn't just learning how to rule. She was preparing to redefine what it meant to lead, her path already diverging from that of a typical princess. Chapter 3. Rise of the leader. As seasons turned and Mithila faced the harsh grip of famine, it wasn't King Janak or his ministers who stepped forward first, but young Sita, whose sense of duty had matured faster than her years. Seeing her people suffering not as a distant royal concern, but as a personal calling, Sita took charge of organizing relief, transforming panic into order with a steady hand and sharper mind. Her reforms didn't stop at distributing grain. She rooted out corrupt officials who sought to profit from misery, proving that justice in Mithila would wear no blindfold under her watch. With every decisive action, whispers of admiration grew louder among nobles and commoners alike, as the princess became known not just for her wisdom, but for wielding authority with compassion and strength. By the time the rains finally returned to bless Mithila's soil, Sita had already sown seeds of loyalty and respect, marking her quiet ascent from royal daughter to the kingdom's true protector. Chapter 4. The Venerable Guru. Though Mithila now looked to Sita as its guiding force, King Janak knew that true greatness required refinement beyond the borders of a familiar throne, prompting him to send her to the forested sanctuary of Rishi Vishwamitra's Gurukul. Among ancient trees and sacred chants, Sita found herself tested in ways no royal court could offer, as Vishwamitra's fierce intellect and unforgiving discipline pushed her beyond the limits she thought existed. Recognizing her rare blend of wisdom and strength, the sage imparted lessons in diplomacy, warfare, and philosophy, teaching her that power meant little without purpose, and leadership demanded more than just command. It was here that Sita first glimpsed the complexities of the world beyond Mithila, learning of the deep-seated rivalries like that between Vishwamitra and Rishi Vashishta, where dharma often danced dangerously close to ambition. When Sita finally left the Gurukul, she carried not just knowledge, but the weight of understanding, armed with the insight that her destiny would demand navigating a world where right and wrong were rarely clear. Chapter 5. The Protector of Mithila returning to Mithila. With the sharpness of a warrior scholar, Sita was no longer just a princess molded by duty. She was a leader ready to wield it, a fact that King Janak acknowledged by appointing her as Prime Minister. Wasting no time, Sita began reshaping the kingdom's foundations, enforcing laws that prioritized fairness while strengthening defenses to ensure that Mithila stood resilient against both internal decay and external threats. Her court became a place where justice was swift and impartial, as even the most entrenched nobles learned that privilege offered no shield when faced with Sita's unwavering commitment to dharma. With each reform and every military drill she oversaw, Sita transformed Mithila from a vulnerable state into a beacon of disciplined prosperity, admired and envied by neighboring kingdoms. Yet beneath her success, Sita remained vigilant, knowing that true leadership wasn't measured by the absence of conflict, but by how prepared one was when the storm inevitably arrived. Chapter 6. The threat of Raavan. Even as Mithila thrived under Sita's stewardship, distant thunder rumbled from the south, where tales of Raavan's conquests spread like wildfire, warning that no kingdom, however fortified, could ignore Lanka's growing shadow. Refusing to be lulled into complacency, Sita immersed herself in studying Raavan, not just his military tactics, but the mind of a man who wielded fear as a weapon, sharper than any blade. She convened councils, forged alliances, and fortified Mithila's borders, understanding that survival wouldn't come from strength alone, but from foresight and unity. Yet as strategies were drawn and defenses tightened, Sita recognized a deeper truth, that Raavan wasn't merely a threat to Mithila, but a test of every lesson she had learned about power, leadership, and resilience. With war clouds gathering on the horizon, Sita stood ready, not as a ruler fearing invasion, but as a warrior prepared to defend her people against the storm she knew was inevitable. Chapter 7. Meeting Hanuman. Amidst preparations for Mithila's defense, fate introduced Sita to a figure unlike any she had encountered, a Vanara warrior named Hanuman, whose strength was matched only by his devotion to a cause greater than kingdoms. Their meeting in the sacred groves wasn't one of ceremony, but of mutual recognition, where Hanuman, a disciple of the Malaya Putras and servant of Vishnu's mission, saw in Sita not just a queen, but a pillar of dharma. As conversations unfolded beneath ancient trees, Sita realized that Hanuman's loyalty wasn't offered lightly. It was earned through shared ideals of righteousness and resilience. Hanuman, impressed by Sita's wisdom and unshakable spirit, pledged his allegiance, not as a subject to a ruler, but as a warrior to a cause destined to shape the fate of Aryavata. When they parted, it was with an unspoken understanding that their paths were now intertwined, bound by destiny, and that in times of darkness, Hanuman's strength would stand as a beacon beside her. Chapter 8. The Swayamvar declaration. Knowing that alliances were as crucial as armies, King Janak and Sita devised a bold political move, declaring a swayamvar where only a man of true strength and character could win Sita's hand. The challenge was set, not a contest of words or wealth, but the impossible task of stringing the mighty bow of Lord Shiva, a weapon so heavy with divine power that none had ever moved it. Invitations were sent across kingdoms, drawing princes, warriors, and even the ambitious gaze of Raavan himself. who saw the contest as both a prize and a statement of dominance. For Sita, this was more than a marriage. It was a calculated test to find a partner worthy not just of her hand, but of standing beside her in the battles that destiny would demand. As Mithila prepared for the grand event, its halls echoed not with songs of celebration, but with the silent anticipation of a decision that would ripple far beyond royal walls. Chapter 9. The arrival of Rama's suitors paraded their strength and failed before Shiva's unyielding bow. A new arrival stepped into Mithila, not draped in arrogance, but in quiet dignity. Prince Ram of Ayodhya. Accompanied by his loyal brother Lakshman and guided by Rishi Vishwamitra, Ram's presence was understated, yet it carried the weight of a man deeply rooted in dharma. From the moment Sita's gaze met Ram's in the palace gardens, words became unnecessary, for she sensed in him the same commitment to righteousness that had shaped her own path. While others saw the Swamvar as a contest of power, Ram viewed it as a matter of honoring divine will, further deepening Sita's respect for the prince who sought no glory. As whispers spread through Mithila of this quiet warrior from Ayodhya, Sita knew that destiny had finally placed before her a man not just capable of stringing a bow, but of walking beside her through the storms yet to come. Chapter 10. The breaking of the bow when Ram stepped forward to attempt the impossible. The court watched with skepticism, their disbelief rooted in the failure of mightier men. But Sita watched with quiet certainty. With effortless grace, Ram lifted Shiva's colossal bow, and in a moment that echoed through time, the divine weapon shattered, not under strain, but as a silent acknowledgement of destiny fulfilled. Amidst gasps and stunned silence, Sita took the garland of marriage in her hands, not as a token of submission, but as a symbol of choosing an equal, a partner bound by shared purpose. As she placed the garland around Ram's neck, the union wasn't just of two individuals, but of ideals, where strength met wisdom and dharma found its balance. Yet while blessings filled the hall, shadows stirred beyond Mithila's borders. For among the defeated stood Raavan, his pride wounded and his gaze now fixed not on conquest, but on vengeance. Chapter 11. A marriage beyond rituals. As the celebrations of Sita and Ram's union filled Mithila with music and color, beneath the surface, both bride and groom knew that their marriage was forged not merely by ritual, but by shared duty. Sita, ever perceptive, saw in Ram a man bound by honor deeper than tradition, and with every exchange, their bond grew, not of fleeting affection, but of mutual respect and alignment of purpose. The farewell to Mithila wasn't marked by sorrow, for Sita understood that her path extended far beyond the palace walls, and Ayodhya awaited, not just a queen, but a leader in her own right. As their chariot crossed into new lands, Sita carried with her more than memories of home. She carried the quiet resolve to stand beside Ram, not behind him, as destiny's trials loomed ahead. And while the people cheered their departure, the winds whispered of challenges that would soon test the strength of this union beyond crowns and ceremonies. Chapter 12. The trials of Ayodhya. Upon arriving in Ayodhya, Sita quickly sensed that royal palaces could be more treacherous than battlefields, as politics brewed beneath smiles and courtesies. While King Dashrath welcomed her warmly, it was Queen Kaikeyi's calculating gaze that hinted at undercurrents threatening the harmony of court life. Sita adapted swiftly, offering wisdom to Ram as they navigated the delicate dance of palace intrigue, where every word spoken echoed with hidden meanings. Yet amidst the grandeur, whispers of succession and jealousy began to stir, reminding Sita that peace was often a fragile illusion within royal walls. As tensions simmered, Sita prepared herself, not just as a queen consort, but as Ram's steadfast ally, ready for the moment when courtly shadows would turn into storms. Chapter 13. Exile declared calm shattered when Kaikeyi demanded Ram's exile, invoking ancient promises and turning love into a weapon of ambition, leaving Ayodhya in stunned silence. Without hesitation, Ram accepted his fate, his unwavering commitment to dharma shining brighter than the throne he was forced to abandon. Sita, refusing to be left behind as a passive queen, chose exile alongside her husband. Not out of obligation, but from a deep-seated belief that true partnership thrived in hardship, not comfort. Lakshman, ever loyal, joined them, and together they left behind crowns and comforts, stepping into the forest where survival would hinge on resilience, not royal lineage. As they crossed Ayodhya's borders, Sita felt no regret, only a calm readiness to face whatever trials the wilderness or fate would place before them. Chapter 14. Life in the forest, though free of palace walls, presented its own set of challenges, where every day was a test of endurance, adaptability, and trust in one another. Sita thrived amidst nature's trials, proving that strength wasn't bound to swords or crowns, but to the ability to find grace in simplicity and danger alike. Alongside Ram and Lakshman, she helped build a life where survival was balanced with adherence to dharma, even when temptation and threats lurked behind every tree. Encounters with sages, tribes, and wandering threats became lessons in diplomacy and defense, as Sita's wisdom often diffused conflicts before blades were drawn. Yet, with every peaceful dawn, Sita knew that the tranquility of the forest was temporary, a calm before the storm fate was quietly preparing. Chapter 15. The shadow of Raavan far from the peaceful groves of their exile, Raavan's pride still simmered after the humiliation of Mithila, his thoughts now twisted by the desire to reclaim his honor through vengeance. Learning of Sita's presence in the forest, Raavan saw an opportunity, not just to strike at Ram, but to shatter the symbol of defiance that Sita had come to represent. As Raavan plotted, he sent spies and demons to probe the trio's defenses, turning the forest into a silent battlefield where threats wore the faces of strangers and shadows alike. Sita sensed the shift. The forest no longer whispered with the sounds of nature, but with the hushed movements of an enemy drawing closer. With every step, Sita braced herself, knowing that Raavan's ambition would not be satisfied with conquest alone. He sought to break spirits, and she was determined to ensure hers remained unbroken. Chapter 16. The golden deer in the stillness of exile, temptation often arrived not as a soldier, but as beauty. And when a golden deer appeared near their hermitage, its shimmering form immediately caught Sita's eye. Enchanted by its ethereal glow, Sita asked Ram to capture it, sensing not greed but a strange allure that felt almost otherworldly, as if fate itself had sent this creature. Ram, ever devoted, set off in pursuit, leaving Lakshman to guard Sita, though both brothers felt a lingering unease beneath the deer's mesmerizing appearance. As Ram's distant cry echoed through the forest, crafted by the deceitful demon Maricha, Sita's concern grew into urgency, compelling her to send Lakshman after him despite his hesitation. Left alone, Sita stood at the threshold of fate, unaware that the golden deer was not a gift of wonder, but the bait that would trigger Raavan's long-planned strike. Chapter 17. The Lakshman Rekha. As Lakshman reluctantly departed to seek Ram, he paused to draw a protective boundary, the legendary Lakshman Rekha, around Sita, warning her never to cross it. Trusting Lakshman's wisdom, Sita remained within the invisible shield. But fate, disguised in clever words, soon arrived in the form of a wandering ascetic seeking alms. The ascetic was none other than Raavan, cloaked in deceit, whose voice carried both charm and menace as he played upon Sita's unwavering adherence to dharma and hospitality. Bound by her principles, Sita stepped beyond the line to offer food, honoring her duty as a host, unaware that this single step was all Raavan needed to spring his trap. in that moment, as Raavan revealed his true form and seized her. Sita's courage did not falter. Though physically captured, her spirit remained defiantly free. Chapter 18. The Flight to Lanka. As Raavan lifted Sita into his Pushpak Viman, the skies themselves seemed to mourn. But Sita sat resolute, refusing to grant her captor the satisfaction of fear. Her cries for help echoed through the forest, summoning the aged warrior Jatayu, who soared valiantly to block Raavan's path despite knowing the odds were grim. The battle in the sky was fierce but brief, ending with Jatayu falling wounded. His sacrifice marking the first act of defiance in Sita's unfolding ordeal. As Lanka's shores neared, Sita's mind remained unshaken, not focused on her captivity, but on the knowledge that Ram would come, not as a savior, but as a force of justice. Raavan, despite his triumph, failed to see that while he had taken Sita's body to Lanka, her spirit remained anchored in unyielding strength. Chapter 19. Lanka's Golden Cage. Upon arriving in Lanka, Sita was not thrown into chains, but placed in the luxurious gardens of Ashok Vatika, where Raavan believed comfort would weaken her resolve. Yet every golden ornament and fragrant bloom only strengthened Sita's disdain, for she knew that gilded captivity was still captivity, no matter how beautiful the cage. Raavan visited often, offering not threats, but promises of power and status if she accepted him. Each offer met with Sita's cold silence or sharp words of defiance. Days turned to weeks, but Sita's spirit never wavered. She found solace among the trees and the stars, drawing strength from the knowledge that Dharma was on her side. While Raavan's patience thinned, Sita's quiet resistance became a beacon, proof that true power lay not in domination, but in the ability to endure without surrender. Chapter 20. Hanuman's leap of faith. As hope flickered in the distance, it was Hanuman who bridged the impossible, leaping across the ocean to find Sita and deliver the message that she was not forgotten nor forsaken. When Hanuman finally found Sita in Ashok Vatika, his humble bow and Ram's ring in his hand reignited a spark, not of rescue, but of reassurance that justice was already in motion. Sita, though relieved, reminded Hanuman that her liberation must come through rightful means, not by stealth, but by Ram's confrontation of Raavan's adharma. Before departing, Hanuman wreaked havoc in Lanka, setting fire to Raavan's city as a warning that war was inevitable and that Lanka's arrogance would soon face divine retribution. As Hanuman vanished into the horizon, Sita stood amidst the smoldering remains of Raavan's pride, her heart steady, knowing that the battle for righteousness had truly begun. Chapter 20. The march to war. As Hanuman returned with news of Sita's defiance and captivity, Ram knew that words had no place in dealings with Raavan. Only righteous war could restore balance. Alliances were forged with the Vanaras and their king Sugriv, creating an army not born of ambition, but united by a shared cause of dharma against tyranny. Sita's faith became the unseen force marching alongside Ram's soldiers, her unwavering spirit fueling the determination of those preparing to cross into Lanka. Under Ram's leadership, the impossible was made real. A bridge of stones stretched across the ocean, each step taken by warriors carrying the weight of justice. As the army set foot on Lanka's shores, the world itself seemed to hold its breath, knowing that the battle ahead was more than a clash of weapons. It was a reckoning. Chapter 22. The Siege of Lanka. As Ram's forces encircled Lanka, Raavan's pride refused surrender, choosing instead to pit his armies and his ego against fate itself. The battlefield became a canvas of chaos and valor, where Vanaras clashed with Rakshasas, and every drop of blood spilled carried the weight of cosmic justice. From her confinement, Sita listened to the distant echoes of war, not with fear, but with the patience of one who knew that true victory was not in conquest, but in the restoration of dharma. Days blurred into nights as champions on both sides fell, yet Ram advanced steadily, his every arrow a statement that adharma would find no refuge. And as the walls of Lanka trembled, it became clear that Raavan's kingdom, built on arrogance and defiance of divine order, was crumbling from within. Chapter 23. The fall of Raavan. The war reached its crescendo when Ram and Raavan faced each other, not as mere men, but as embodiments of opposing forces, righteousness against unchecked pride. Their duel shook the heavens, but where Raavan fought with fury and ego, Ram fought with calm precision, each strike guided by purpose rather than rage. As Ram's final arrow struck true, Raavan fell, not just as a defeated king, but as a warning etched into history of what becomes of those who defy the natural order of dharma. Sita, hearing of Raavan's end, did not rejoice, for she knew that true victory was solemn, a restoration of balance, not a celebration of death. With Lanka silenced, all eyes turned to Sita, whose endurance had outlasted Raavan's power, proving that resilience was the greatest weapon of all. Chapter 24. The test of fire. Though freed from captivity, Sita's return was met not with pure joy, but with the weight of societal judgment, as whispers questioned her purity after months in Raavan's domain. Understanding that leadership sometimes demanded personal sacrifice to silence doubt, Sita chose to undergo the Agni Pariksha, a trial by fire, not to prove herself, but to uphold Ram's duty as king to his people. As flames roared around her, Sita walked through unscathed, the fire itself recognizing the untarnished truth of her spirit and emerging stronger than ever in the eyes of all who watched. Yet beneath the surface, this ordeal marked a turning point. Sita realized that even victory could come with a cost, and that dharma often demanded more from the righteous than from the wicked. As she stood beside Ram once more, Sita carried not just the scars of captivity, but the quiet understanding that her journey as a warrior of Mithila was far from over. Epilogue. The unbroken spirit. As the dust of war settled and Ayodhya welcomed its victorious king and queen, Sita resumed her role, not as a mere consort, but as a symbol of endurance, wisdom, and the eternal struggle to uphold dharma. Yet Sita knew that peace was often fleeting, and that a leader's journey was rarely rewarded with rest, but with ever-growing challenges shaped by fate and expectation. While the world saw a queen adorned in jewels, Sita remained the warrior forged by trials, alert, compassionate, and prepared for whatever tests the future would bring. For Sita's legacy was never confined to palaces or epics. It lived in the quiet strength of standing firm when the world demanded surrender. And so, her story did not end with a coronation, but continued as a beacon for generations to come. An enduring reminder that true power lies in resilience, not in crowns.